Grab a cup of joe, buckle up, and let's embark on a journey of self-discovery, creativity, and entrepreneurship. Let's get rolling.
Hey everybody, welcome to this episode of Rhythm of the Road podcast. I wanted to talk to you about something today, mostly because there's a lot of it going on in my world right now, and typically I'm not alone. And maybe that's something that you also need to hear today, and is you too are not alone in whatever that is. And today I'm talking about this idea of how do you manage transition? And transition can mean a million things, and fill in the blank for yourself. But like, is it transition from like your work day to your evening? Is it from your morning routine to your work day? Is it you're transitioning from one job to another? Is it you're transitioning from your day job to your evening side hustle, and then you like got to put your kids to bed? Like, so what does it look like to manage all those different types of transitions? And what do you need to be thinking about? What are some tools that you could maybe use? Like, what is even possible? And so something that I found that's really important for me is just to first name what it is. Name that you're physically in transition, even if it means transition is from your downstairs office to your upstairs home, or just down the street, or you're walking across the street, or it could be as long as a 20-minute to 100-minute commute. Some of you that are driving in extreme traffic, you might be driving in extreme traffic while you're listening to this podcast. That is your moment of transition. And so I want to help you get through those transitions. And like I said, the first thing I do is start by just naming this is a transition. Like, it's a means to get somewhere. I always say this phrase to my kids when they're just struggling with something or they can't get through it, just build a bridge and get over it. And it kind of just calms you down, because enough of you is just like, yeah, you're right. I kind of just need to get over it. But that's just another way of naming it. In the music world, when we're talking about writing a bridge in terms of a section of a song or a composition, a bridge is just a means to get somewhere, or it's a transition from one place to another, or it departs you from something and brings you back. Think about your transitions more like a bridge. Like, it's just a means to get you somewhere, or it's a means to remove you from something to get you to the next thing. And those sound very similar, but they're very different. Sometimes we physically and mentally need to just disconnect before we can re-enter or we can reconnect. And sometimes we just need to know, like, here we are, we're in this moment, we're going to transition, and we're just going to get prepared. And two things need to happen. One is you need to unpack or reflect or let go of what you came from, and you need to be ready to enter into and be present for what you're going to. And so many times, since I've spent so much time on the road, people are like, how do you even just manage being home and then you're on the road all the time? Because when I'm in those places, I stay intentional and stay present in those spaces. So if I'm on the road, I'm on the road. It doesn't mean that I completely disconnect from my family and I don't talk to them and we're not messaging back and forth and doing those things. Mentally and physically, I'm present in those spaces, which also means when it's time for me to get home or not be on the road or any of those kinds of things, I am just home and I'm present and I can be there. My body can feel it. My family can feel it. Like, do you ever go home and like feel like you're staring off into space, or your family's like, are you even here? It's like you started to transition and you went somewhere, but like you never arrived where you were wanting to get to. And that could be physically or mentally. And hopefully you arrive there physically if you're talking to them, but the mental part sometimes takes a little bit longer. So think about that as you're transitioning. So some things that I use when I'm transitioning, like the really simple, easy one is I just flip on the radio. And I don't concern myself with what am I listening to? What is it doing? What's the message? How does it feel? Nothing. Sometimes I just turn it on because it's noise and it's an opportunity for my brain to disconnect from whatever feedback or sounds or experiences I was having prior to that. The other way I do it is I intentionally pick the music based on what I think my body needs to help me move from wherever I was and whatever state of mind or body I was in to move to the next thing. So that way I could then be present when I get there. And sometimes like I'll do something to get me out of, but then I'll also do something to get me into. So I can do that with my music. And I know that we've talked about on other podcast episodes what some of those tools are. So make sure just go back and check out some of those episodes. And maybe that's something I do in the future one. Like if I'm happy, play this. And if I'm sad, play this. And if I'm angry, this. And if I'm inquisitive, play this. Or if I'm thoughtful or I want something romance or I want something intimate, some of those kinds of things. Maybe that's for a later episode. But today we're just talking about that transition piece. The other thing is I sit in silence. Like you don't need to drive in your car with the radio blasting and podcasts going or audiobooks playing. All those things are wonderful and amazing. And I certainly encourage all three of them. But that doesn't mean they're the right thing every single time. You just got to kind of choose and see what makes sense for you. Sometimes coming home in silence for me is the best thing ever because I've done so much talking or so much interaction or so many meetings or you have so many people kind of coming at you all day that silence sometimes is just the 15, 20 minutes you need to transition to what that next thing is. Another thing I'll do is just do some breathing exercises, like whether it's slow breathing or there's lots of tapping type exercises that I'll do to kind of help just kind of calm my body and calm my nervous system and those kinds of things to prepare me for what's next. And sometimes I'm using that preparing me for what I might be going into. If I feel like it's something that I'm just maybe a little uncomfortable with, or something I'm a little anxious about, or something maybe I just don't want to do, I'll do some of those breathing pieces. I'll do some tapping things. I like to use this one a lot. It's really great. Just kind of taking one hand and tapping on the kind of the fleshy back part of your hand. There's a whole like slew of tapping things that you can find on apps. And if you're see therapists or you see like somatic therapy kinds of things, like they teach all sorts of different tapping pieces. And I'm no expert on it. I just know like this one works for me and I use it a lot. And so I'm just sharing it with you. So if you're watching on video, you can see what I'm doing. If you're listening in a car or on your headphones, it's just take the bottom fleshy part of your hand and place your other hand right on it and kind of just tap at a nice slow tempo, but just nice and steady. And that what that does is it legitimately just reduces and slows your heart rate and your breathing, which allows your body to kind of just reset. And you can kind of do that in the moment. It's a trick that I use, like if I'm just sitting on a Zoom call or I'm in a meeting that I feel like it's a little challenging, or if I feel myself kind of disconnecting. Sometimes you're sitting in a meeting or you're getting ready for the next meeting and you just kind of disconnect a little bit and you kind of get that sleepy look, or you might look like you're about to fall asleep and you start the yawns. And if I do that, kind of just wakes my body back up a little bit too. So it can help as you're at the end of your day, you feel like you're out of energy. It gives you an opportunity to kind of put a little bit back into yourself. So again, in that transition time, you can be and still stay present for what's coming next. Because though we don't need to stay on all the time and be completely just 100% into everything we're doing, because there are just times that your body wears down and you're out of energy, and that could be for any number of reasons. But we don't have to stay at 100% all of the time. We can function at 65 or 70%. And if you have people around you that can understand that and you can communicate that to them, which means what? Go back to what I first said. You have to be able to name it, be able to share it, and be able to tell somebody else, whether that's a friend or a loved one or someone in your inner circle, like, this is where I'm at right now and this is what I need. Sharing that alone, being vulnerable like that in those moments of transition is going to make your life so much easier. So if you thought this was a good idea, or if you just think I'm kind of wackadoodle because I'm just kind of talking here ad nauseum about transition, that's okay. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, share it with somebody else that might need to hear this wacky thing, because I'm just sharing real life with you right now in what I do on a daily and or weekly basis to just help me in those transition moments. And if any of you know me personally, or you've watched my journey so far over the last 47 episodes, you understand there's a lot of moving parts and a lot of things going on and a lot of transition time coming up in my really near future. And so these are things that are really important for me to just continue living and functioning and executing at the level that I expect of myself. So thank you. I appreciate you being here, and I'll see you down the road.
Thanks for cruising with me on this episode of Rhythm of the Road. Remember, the journey itself is the destination. Until next time, keep the rhythm flowing, and we'll see you down the road.